Hi Flosstube, this is Karen. I'm the recovering monogamous stitcher. I'm here with my third Flosstube. This is September 29th, 2022. I want to thank you so much for all the comments, all the wonderful comments I've gotten. You're so welcoming. If you're new, if this is the first time you've seen my channel, you're so welcome. I'm happy you're here. And if you're returning, I so appreciate you coming back. That means you liked what you have seen so far. And I hope you will continue to do so. I am just amazed at the response and very pleased. It's very encouraging. Thank you so much. I don't think I can let this Flosstube go by without commenting on the hurricane in Florida, because I've told you several times I winter in Florida. So friends, I hope you're all safe, that you followed emergency instructions, because property can be replaced, but people can't. So fingers crossed. I have a happy announcement. We're going to have a face-to-face stitchers meeting. Yay! Tuesday, October 4 in Lexington. We're going to meet at the Barnes & Noble on Sir Barton Way. That's in the Hamburg Pavilion shopping area. If you're in Lexington, you know where Hamburg shopping area is, and the Barnes & Noble is right there. And if you haven't commented, doesn't matter. Come on by. You don't have to ask permission or anything. I'm hoping we'll have a whole flash mob show up at Barnes & Noble and they won't know what happened. So Tuesday, October 4 at noon at Barnes & Noble. That's going to be great fun. And I also want to thank a viewer, Shelley. She's one of the first Kentucky stitchers who contacted me, and she took the initiative to set up a Facebook group for us. She has named it Central KY Stitchers, and I'll put that in the notes below this video. And I don't think there are any hoops or any requirements to join, so if you want to just join the Facebook group, feel free. Appreciate that very much. Thank you, Shelley. I have some questions from the previous video I'm going to address. Someone had asked me to tell about my design wall and how it was made, and I've recorded a short video. We plan to put that at the end of this video. So if you're interested in seeing about my design wall, stick around for that. Someone else requested close-up shots of the Underwater Rhapsody quilt that was up in video number 2, and I've shot some video of that. And again, we plan to put that at the end of this video. So if you're interested, you can stick around for that. I had a request from someone asking me if I would make video for beginners. So I'm going to turn that around and make that a question that I put out to you. If you are a beginning stitcher, is that something you would be interested in? Or do you feel that those resources are already out there and it's not necessary? I have no intention of reinventing the wheel and putting something out that's already out there. So if you're a beginning stitcher, let me know. Is that something you would be interested in? If so, I'm certainly willing to do that. Someone else commented that she went to tigerlilyshop.com and tried to buy one of those project folders that I showed you, which I have right here, and that they were not available. Well, since that time, I heard her latest video, and she mentioned that she posts her available stock on the 15th of the month. So if you're interested in purchasing one, get that on your calendar, the 15th of the month, and jump on it because they sell out. On the other hand, if you're a sewer, buy the pattern and make your own. So anyway, I hope that's helpful because she has really great products. I was also asked about long arm quilting. You know, how do you get it and where do you go? So here are my ideas. I don't quilt for anyone, so this is just what I know as a quilter about other people. First thing I would do is, if you have a local quilt store where you shop for your fabric, ask them. They may have knowledge of quilters in the area who do quilting for other people. They may even have business cards of long arm quilters or recommendations of long arm quilters. That would be a great place to start. If there's a local quilt guild, and if there is a local quilt guild, you should belong to the local quilt guild. You can contact the quilt guild because there are probably quilters in that guild who do quilting for other people. That's a great way to get a hold of somebody. Another way is through online resources. Before I had my long arm, I sent, I think 3 or 4 quilts to Missouri Star Quilt Company to have quilted, and they're fine. And I'm not promoting Missouri Star, that's just one place I know of. There could be many others, so do some research on that. And you can Google long arm quilting and see what comes up. Probably some maybe nationally prominent names would come up, and so depending on how much you want to spend on having your quilts quilted, that might be an option. Speaking of how much you would spend, if you're doing an edge-to-edge, they call it an edge-to-edge design. It's the same thing from one edge of the quilt to the other edge of the quilt, no matter if there are sashings or borders or whatever, it's just quilted. That's this quilt behind me, that's how that was quilted. That's your most economical way to have something quilted. Now, if you want something special in your borders, that's going to cost more. If some of your request requires a quilter to use rulers and do ruler work and extra measuring, that's going to cost more. So all the way up to fully custom quilts, those will be the most expensive. So it depends on your wallet. I don't remember anymore how much I spent at Missouri Star. I know it was priced per inch. I thought it was very worth it. So you might want to check that out, or some other online. Okay. Now back to cross stitch. I was asked if I stitch with 1 or 2 threads over 2 linen threads. And the answer to that is it depends. If I'm on 40 count, I absolutely use 1 thread. 1 floss thread over my linen threads. I have not stitched on anything with a higher count than 40, but I would assume, of course, if it's even a higher count, you would use just 1 thread. If I'm at 36, sorry. If I'm at 36, it's iffy. It depends on how I want it to look. If I want it to be a very solid look, I'll use the 2 threads. If I want it to look older, I might use 1. And when I pull out my Rosa Featherstone to show you my progress, I can show you that I did a test up by the border. I did a little 3x3 square of one thread and another 3x3 square of 2 threads, and compared them and said, how do I want this to look? And that's how I decided on that. So anything smaller than 36, I use 2 threads, even if it's, whether it's the Aida or the linen. That's what I do. I hope that was helpful. Okay, that's it on the questions. I have an FFO. Last week I showed you some completed stitches, or finished stitches. Now I can't even talk. And one of them was Flea Market Baskets from Holt. I took my finished stitches to Hobby Lobby this week, and I wanted a white frame for this, and they had a 12-inch white frame. It was on the shelf and it was on sale. Oh my gosh, when does that ever happen, that what you're shopping for is there and on sale at the same time? So this was like $5, and I popped it in myself. Just used some, I didn't lace it or pin it. I just, centered it and used the double-sided acid-free tape for stitching. I got it Fat Quarter Shop. So a simple finish, but finished, ta-da. So that'll be going to Florida. Another one that I showed was Something Wicked by La Di Da. I ended up not ordering, well, I couldn't order from them because the shortest measurement they can order from their central supplier is 5.5 inches. And that was going to be way big. I didn't want that. So I brought this back home, and I'm going to finish it as a flat fold using Vanna's tutorial. I've done flat folds before, and I will do that because I want that shape to be preserved. Okay, and then the other 4, I'm going to get framed. As I was going to Hobby Lobby, Mr. Nabler said, well, how many are you taking? And I said, well, I'll take 3 this time, and then a few weeks I'll take 3 more. He said, why are you doing that? If you're gonna get them all framed, go get them framed. Okay, I'll do that. So I came back with, they cut the acid-free foam core. I'm going to mount it myself. That's a service they would do for you, but I can do it myself, so I just do it. I don't pay for something I can do myself. So those will get framed shortly, and I'll have some more finishes to show. I'm excited about that. Okay, my whips, the things I've worked on in the last 2 weeks. So the first one I'm going to show you is Redbird Sampler. That was a new start for me. And here it is. I'm not even going to apologize for the wrinkles because, as you know, don't want to flatten my stitches. Okay, now as I was stitching this, I'm stitching this arbor. And I had just started it a little bit, and one place in the pattern where I felt there should be a flower, it showed all green, the same color as the leaves. And assuming that this was stitched by a young stitcher, which that's an assumption, but I said, oh, the poor dear, she got all confused and she just did that all green. And since I'm doing a reproduction, I stitched it that way. So I continued up on this arbor and got up kind of high. And I thought, now how much more do I have to do? So I looked at the picture on the front of the pattern and looked, and that was sure as shooting. Those are 2 flowers there. I checked my pattern again. It shows all green. So there was a mistake in the pattern. It happens. And did Karen go check the designer's website first and see if there was an error that was being corrected? No, I didn't. I just assumed everything was all fine. So by that time, I had stitched so far, I couldn't remember the path I had used, because I want to take out as few stitches as I have to fix it. So that's kind of my philosophy, fix your mistakes. So here's what I did. I stitched over it. Second one up. You can see that flower is just a little bit darker than the other one because I just stitched over it. You know, if your face is like that close, you can see it, but when it's framed, nobody's gonna know. So there you go. I outed myself. I didn't fix a mistake. So heads up, if you are currently stitching or soon going to be stitching, just note if your pattern has that on that area where it's all green, and I wish I could show you, but of course I can't show you, just know it's supposed to be a flower on both sides. So, okay, that's Redbird Sampler. The other thing I've worked on is the Christmastime Mystery Sale from Fat Quarter Shop. Releases 2 and 3 have come out, and I finished them. So it's looking pretty good. That's my needle minder on the side there, but this time, this 3rd release was the wording. So I've kept up. There are 2 more releases that will come out in October, and then that one will be done. Oh, this is stitched on 14 count Ada, and I think the last video I misspoke and I said it was 40 count, 14. Okay. Okay, the next one, this was not a new start. I started this in August. It's from JBW Designs, Antique Sampler 2, and I'm stitching Helene Snoor, because I always have a red sampler in progress. And last time I showed you, I had the first row done and the letter D down here. So, and that was 3 days stitching. Frankly, it wasn't much stitching time. So, and now the rest of it is another 3 days of stitching. So I'm making good progress on this. I feel really good about it. It's stitched on 40 count linen, but I don't know the name of it. I don't seem to have the note on the fabric. I don't know what it is. And the floss I used, Judy had recommended that the closest matching color was 33. Was 3328. Sorry, DMC 3328. So that's what I'm using. So it will most closely match the original. Okay. The next thing I stitched on in this 2 weeks is Rosa Featherstone. This is the one where I was mumbling about how bright it is, and I am going to do some dyeing afterwards. And I've ordered from Fat Quarter Shop the antiquing spray, and I'm going to do some experimenting before I do this and see which way I want to do it. But let me show you in the edge. Here's what I talked about. I do a sample. Is that gonna, can you tell? This was 1 thread, and this was 2 threads. And I decided I wanted the 2 threads, so that's what I'm stitching with. But I finished stitching the house, all filled in. Home sweet home, there she is. Okay. And that was not a new start, that was my birthday start this year in February, so. Okay, Rosa Featherstone, and then Rosa Sugars. I did a little more stitching on her. She is stitched on 40 count Cream and Sugar by Fiber on a Whim. Oops, sorry. Let me just flip this around here. I added this line of alphabet. Added these flowers down here. That's all I've done on her since. And again, I said I was going to remember to show you my bags, and I'm just flipping through here and not doing what I said. This bag and the Rose and the Giant Pear are the same. Fabric I got at Joann's, and this vinyl I got at Joann's. I was in Florida, so it was I wasn't familiar with the store, the layout of the store, and I came across the vinyl and got the vinyl. This is thin. I'm sure they have a heavier one, but I didn't know enough to look for it or see where it was, so that was bad. So I use soft and stable inside, which is good, but this thinner vinyl, you won't like it. Don't do that. If you can see that there's a difference, get the heavier, because it is much nicer when it's finished that way. Okay, those are the things I've stitched on in the 2 weeks. My plans for the rest of Sampler September, which, wow, 1 whole day. I'm going back to Rose and the Giant Pear, the Rose and the Giant Pear. And I have not stitched on this since the last time I showed it to you. It's going on 40 count Cream and Sugar by Fiber on a Whim. I'm sorry, I'm trying to learn all this new stuff all at once here. I've got a lot of progress on the house. Another house. Love houses. Don't we all? And this bag is exactly like the last one I showed you. The same fabric and the same flimsy vinyl. It works, but it's not as nice. Okay, so that'll finish out Sampler September. And then October, I've started laying out my plans for October in my book of days. Of course, Bird Crush Club will come any day now. So that will be stitched till it's finished. Christmastime Mystery Salve from Fat Quarter Shop will be stitched until it's finished. There are 2 more releases on that. I'll continue on the Helene Snoor. I'll give that a minimum of 3 days in the month. My new focus piece is my oldest whip, and that will get 7 days of stitching minimum. And it's Elizabeth Isles, which was started on January 1st for you know whose birthday, Laura. And I got to start on it. I'm going to do this as a drum. I've kind of measured out some spaces there for some of the stitching, so I make sure I'm lining things up right. So I'm going to go across the pattern and get the pots of flowers just kind of right across. I'm not doing the angels, I'm not doing the verse. I'm going to put Elizabeth Isles on it and the year. I don't know if I'll put from the work of Elizabeth Isles or something like that, but I want it to be documented, and that will be finished into a drum. So that's my focus. It remains my focus until it's done. So if it doesn't get done in my October, it spills over to the next. This bag also has that flimsy vinyl, unfortunately. This fabric is a Lori Holt fabric line, Millie's Closet. I think Millie was her grandmother. And I have the lining is another, whoops, another fabric from the line. Oops, there. So, nice color. Okay, and these all fell over. So where am I? There's the pair. Okay. Another October that I am going to concentrate on is one I have been using as my dark 13 stitching. Halloween Quaker from Leela Studio. I started it in March, but the 13th is one day, and the 31st I would do it also, but not every month has a 31st, so I haven't gotten a lot of progress. This is stitched on 40 count Tornado from Fox and Rabbit. I couldn't get a hold of the 40 count Murky, and I'm happy with this Tornado. I think it's a great look. So this will get more stitching time than just the 13th and 31st. Oh, this bag, it's a batik. I don't often have a theme bag that lines up with my patterns, but this one was available. And this lining fabric I like with the flies caught in the spider webs. Okay, and I want to have a new start in October, but it's not fully kitted yet. I have to get some more threads. It comes from The Winds of Autumn, Blackbird Designs. I want to stitch everything in this book eventually, but the one I want to start with is Mighty Acorn. I thought it was Mighty Oak. You've seen this. A lot of people are stitching this. It's beautiful. I have the called for fabric, which is 36 count, what was it called? 36 count Wren. I have some of the over dyes, and I've gathered a few of the DMCs. I don't know, there's an awful lot of similarity between those over dyes. I don't know how that's going to come out, so I'll see about that. Okay, and this bag was made from, the Blackbird Designs new fabric that came out, and the lining is the dot. And I made one of those zipper pulls that Lori's daughter Cassidy did the tutorial on. Okay. Okay, so that's my plans for the rest of Sampler September and for October. Okay, I've gathered some past finishes here to share with you. Some of my October Halloween-y kind of finishes. I have a few. This one is a free pattern from Orafill Threads, designed by Susan Aki. I can't show you because it's the chart, so it's available free from Orafill. I think it's called Quaker Halloween. Halloween Quaker? No, that's Leela Studio. Well, that's confusing. Anyway. It's a Quaker style, and it's cute. I just finished this really simply, and I put it on an easel. I didn't even finish off the back, but it stands on an easel. Okay, the next one I have to show you, Jardine Privé, Halloween. Love that guy, just chilling. Mr. Bones. And I finished it as a flat fold. Here it is. Used Vanna's tutorial for flat fold. Turned out pretty nicely, I do say so myself. There's a story with this one. The first year I was going to submit cross stitch to the state fair, looking at the categories, I could only enter one thing. They had a category for framed full coverage and framed not full coverage. Well, Newcastle Bouquet, framed not full coverage, that's one. I didn't see any other category that any of my stitching would fit in. And I mumbled about it to Mr. Enabler, and he said, you read rules too strictly, you take the rules too literally. So I went back and looked at them again, and there was a category for stand-up. Now, I call this a flat fold, not a stand-up, but I entered it in stand-up, and it got a blue ribbon. So I guess he's right. Again, I read rules too literally. So there you go. Okay, this is a Brenda Gervais, Hilda Boo and Sunflowers 2. And here it is finished. I did the brick rack trim, checkered bow, and I put the year charm on it. And it's like a homespun check on the back. This is not filled as much as I like. I like them to be stuffed and heavy. But I did the method that Brenda gives instructions for in her pattern, whereas it's split here and you stuff it and then you sew that seam up. Well, when I'm doing litter, that lizard litter, that stuff is spilling out before this is as full as I want it, and I still have to sew it up. So I think I won't do that method again, and I will do my own, my tried and true, leave the bottom open part way and stuff, and then close it, and it gets fuller. I'm not going to take this apart or try to even stuff it anymore, but I love the pattern. Of course, Brenda Gervais. What's not to love, right? Okay, Prairie Schooler. I did all of these. This is called pumpkins. They're stand-ups. They're what I would call stand-ups. And it's number 57. I stitched all of these. These that are more autumnal, not Halloween, I left in Florida because we get down there after Halloween, and so they're there. I don't have a lot of fall decorations. This cat was supposed to have come home with me, and it's not here, so I'm hoping I inadvertently left it there because I have no other good explanation for where it is. So I'll show you those. So here's the owl. Got a stick out of the backyard and cut it down and sewed that on. I couldn't find the wire that the pattern called for it. There you can see it a little better. I got this from the floral department at Michael's. It's green, and I wrapped it around a handle of a wooden spoon to give it a nice curl. I don't remember what I did to stiffen this. I didn't have whatever it was the instructions said to use inside. This is felt, and I put something in there to stiffen it up so it would stand up and not be floppy. And I attached it the way the instructions said with a button on the back. One from my mother's collection, so that's special to me. And did the stitching around the side. And that's the owl. And I put drapery weights on the bottom board that I closed it up with to make it heavy. And I have heard others say that they glue pennies to put weight on the bottom of theirs. That's a much less expensive way to weight it down than drapery weights. So if you haven't ever done that, try pennies. I will in the future. And here's the little pumpkin guy, finished the same way, the same attachment of the stem and the vine. You can see it a little better. Here he is. I initialed and put the year on the bottom. And kitty cat, I don't know where you are. Okay, another one I have is Shiny Things. This was a kit from Lindy Stitches. I got it in time to get the kit. She didn't run out, so I'm thrilled about that. Usually I'm a day late and $1 short, so that was fun. So I got all of the materials, which is great fun. There's the front, Shiny Things. Here's the back. I put my initials in the year. Here's the inside. There's a pocket here, and I added a needle minder. She included the counting pins. Love those. Then there's lots of room for needles. There's a pocket back here, and I keep little scissors back here. Owl scissors. Bought those from Lindy Stitches too. Can you see the details? So cute. She has lots of cute scissors. I think I've got kind of a scissor thing or something going on. I took this on our trip that we went on in August, and it just, for one thing, I wasn't taking more than I needed, only my basic things that I needed, and they were all nicely contained, and anyway, I loved it. Love this whole thing. Oh, she has released this pattern in her new booklet that just came out, and it has 6 kind of scary, kind of Halloween-y, gothic kind of patterns in it, and this is in it also. I'm going to get that book because I have to stitch a gothic chicken. You know, everybody needs a gothic chicken. Okay, Prairie Schooler. I have a couple more Prairie Schoolers. This one is All Hallows Eve. It's number 180. Trying to read backwards. And here it is. Finished in a standard size frame, so that's always a bonus. I don't know if you can see the little dings in the frame there. I thought it looked kind of Halloween-y or old or something. So that's All Hallows Eve. And I finished as a companion piece Trick or Treat because they are the exact same stitch count. So I thought they made a good pair. And that's number 188. And here's Trick or Treat. Fun. And I love, what I love about Prairie Schooler is kind of the block of color. You know, it's not like fade in and out, lights and darks, and it's blocks of color. And so for Prairie Schooler, I always choose an Ada because to me, to my eye, it gives a solid look to the background too, and I like that. So here are 2 that I did. These were on 16 count. Wait, let me see. They were on 16 count Ada, ivory. Both fabrics purchased Ada ivory. Now, are you going to see the difference in that? This one is lighter than this one. This is more creamy, more ivory. I purchased them, not at the same time, but they were the same maker and they had the same color on them. And did I lay them next to each other before I stitched the second one? No. So they're slightly different. So if they're next to each other, I don't know. I guess if you're back, it doesn't show so badly. So anyway, that's a pair I did. I like those. Okay, another Halloween one I did was another Lindy Stitches. It's We Three, those cats, and the quote from Macbeth, the witches in Macbeth. Fit in a standard frame, so that's another bonus. Stitched on 32 count Sweet Pea, I think. 32 count Sweet Pea linen. It was DMC 310, and then the details, the whiskers were done in ecru. Look at those expressions. I love those. Oh, okay, so those are some of my Halloween stitches. Okay, next is haul, and I will actually call this haul. Normally I call it kitting up. I'm buying something for a specific project and I'm kitting up, but this really is haul because it's not for a specific project. I mentioned NPI Silks last time, and that sale, by the way, goes through tomorrow, so if you haven't gotten it yet and you want it, better get it. I decided I could give it a try, since I'm always stitching red samplers. If I get a couple skeins of a couple different kinds of reds, they would work on a sampler. I'm hoping 2 skeins will be enough. So I chose a dark red, 2 skeins. This is called Berry Red Range, and it's, I don't know, it's just a Berry Red Range. Okay, I don't see a specific number on it, but that's the dark red. And I bought 2 skeins of bright red. So I've dipped my toe in the NPI pool, ready to go. And then also in the discussion of DMCs and changing out colors and finding colors, several people recommended to me that I get the DMC color chart. Not the one with the pictures of the colors, but the one with the actual threads. And I got it. I got it from Fat Quarter Shop. It's huge. It's going to be, I know it's going to be really good, really handy. Be able to look at and compare and change colors. Anyway, so I'm happy to have that. I think it's going to help me. And I appreciate the recommendation from those of you who recommended that. That's great. Okay, so that's the end of the cross-stitch section. I'm going to go on to the quilting discussion. And at the end, after I get done with the quilt section, there should be a short video on my design wall, its construction, and another on the close-ups of the Underwater Rhapsody from last time. So if you're not interested in the quilting, have a good day, and I hope to see you next time. And if you're staying with me, we'll talk about this quilt. I chose this quilt specifically for this video because I just watched Susan Standley's new video, and she was talking about samplers, what makes a sampler, what defines a sampler, and she had some input from Jean Lee from the attic. It was very interesting to listen to. And one thing she talked about were some of the motifs that show up consistently in samplers, and houses was one of them. And as I listened to that, I realized that I've always been drawn to houses in different forms, whether in samplers. I love stitching the houses. I love that. I get the outline done and fill it in. I'm building a house. I love it. And the feeling of hearth and home and family, I think that's just a natural draw for houses. So, and I realized I've been drawn to houses for a long time. I have a small little wall hanging that I made in the 1980s, went back when I was still hand quilting. Little houses. This hangs on my wall in my sewing room all the time. I did not date it, but I know it's in the 1980s because I remember the house I was living in at the time. That's, anyway. So houses, again, giving that nice warm family feeling. And this is so old, I'm seeing that the fabric has kind of discolored. But houses, that's an early expression of my love of houses. Here's another one. Prim Village by Lori Holt. Love the houses, all lined up like salt boxes. Love it. This is going to go to Florida because of the bright colors. And the small companion piece that went with it, I have this on my wall in my sewing room. Again, another house. I'd always been drawn to schoolhouse quilts too. And when I see things on clearance, always on clearance, that are shaped like houses, I love to get them. This I'm sure was supposed to be a planter, but I use it to hold little tools on my counter. Another couple I got from Michael's. This was on clearance, pens and markers and stuff on my counter in the sewing room. Another one also on clearance at Michael's. Holds my tools and doodads on my counter. So I'm drawn to houses. Now the quilt. This quilt is back from in the day when I was blogging pretty regularly, and I followed a lot of bloggers. And one of them out of Netherlands made this design, and it's copyrighted in 2011. And she had a challenge to sew 365 houses in 365 days, and that was to happen in 2012. So I thought that was pretty exciting. I can do that. Well, I spent most of my weekends in January, because I was working at that time, of course. So in January, I was cutting pieces. So I was way behind at the at the get-go. And I didn't try to even just do one each day. Of course, weekend was my sewing time, and I would do a bunch on the weekend. I did end up catching up, though, because I finished it in October, so that worked pretty well. So there are 365 houses. I used scraps from my scraps and my mother's. My mother had died in 2004, so I had her scraps and my scraps. That was that was a little sentimental journey going through all those scraps and choosing them. When I cut them out, I repeated the sky colors and I repeated the window colors. Excuse me, because I didn't have enough variety to have different in everything. But on the house blocks, when I cut out a house, one fabric I cut out like for the window wall, one fabric for the door wall, one fabric for a door, one fabric for the roof, one fabric for the piece, all of the same color, but then scattered them out. So any house or any fabric is not repeated in the same place on any other house. Does that make sense? It made sense to me at the time. So that was fun. And I did the math at the time. There are 7,041 pieces in this quilt. The blocks finished 2 7/8 inches square, and the cornerstones and sashings finish 1/2 inch square. I was always confounded by that, though, because she was from the Netherlands and the measurements were given in centimeters. I had to keep a chart of what is that? Confusion. But anyway, fun. So I did some mixing up, and the things that were repeated, I had a specific fabric. I had made my daughter an Easter basket one time, and it had little bunnies on it. So the yellow, there are some bunnies peeking out of windows, and so for my grandchildren, on the label on the back, I said, can you find 7 windows with a bunny? Can you find 4 houses with the door on the right side and not the left? And so they've had fun doing that. So this is my house quilt, 365 houses in 365 days. I did personalize the center block a bit for this house. It has an oval window on the front door. It has a cat in the window. This is a skinny cat. My cat was a fat cat. A pot of flowers at the corner of the garage and a tree on the side. So, and this was before I had my long arm. So this is one that was sent to Missouri Star to be quilted. They did a nice job on it. Let's see, so that is houses, houses, houses. And I think that's all for this video. Thank you for coming. Hope you come back again. If you're interested in seeing the section on my design wall or the section on the close-ups of the Underwater Rhapsody quilt, you can stick around for a few minutes more. I'll see you in a couple weeks. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hi, Flosstube. I was asked by a viewer about my design wall, and I thought since we have one quilt down, before we put the other one up, I'll show you the details about the design wall. Now this room has 9-foot ceilings because it is a lower level in the house, so it has 9-foot ceilings. So it might be deceiving as to how big this is. My design wall is 72 inches high and 96 inches wide. It was made from 2 4-foot by 8-foot sheets of blue foam insulation that were purchased at Lowe's. 2 feet of the length on each board was cut off just because we couldn't get them in the car if they were 8 feet long. The boards were abutted and connected using the adhesive that's meant for that purpose, and also reinforced with duct tape. I covered it with the widest felt I could find, and I got it at Joann's. It was attached to the boards with quilter's basting spray. The felt is not wide enough to wrap around to the back, so at the bottom, the edges, we had to use duct tape to just hold it there. It's been there for 11 years, so it's working okay. So if you have a different size board, maybe you can wrap it around and really get it attached to the back. Now the wall is attached, the design wall is attached to the wall using, let me get closer here, mirror anchors. Oh, that's, let me come over here, maybe we won't get a shadow. Okay, using mirror anchors. They were purchased at Ace Hardware. And Ace Hardware also had the correct size spacers that had to go behind, you can't even see, behind, it had to go behind because this sticks out from the wall and is thicker than what a mirror would be. And they also had the long screws that were required. We have 3 mirror holders at the bottom, and we have 3 at the top, and they were spaced so that they are screwed into studs. So it's very sturdy. And then the 2 anchors, that I've one on each side, and those are attached with drywall anchors. They're not in studs. So that's the details on my design wall. It looks like a big old white surface. There is a curtain rod at the top that was added later because when I have to photograph my quilts to be juried into a show, you can't have fingers holding the corners or anything. They have to hang straight and, you know, show that they're bound and fully straight. So we put up a curtain rod that can hold big heavy quilts. So that's what that is. I hope you have success making your own design wall. Thanks. Hi, this is Karen, recovering monogamous stitcher. One of my viewers requested a close-up of the Underwater Rhapsody quilt, so I'm making a separate little video that I will attempt to put up as separate, so that if you're not interested, you don't have to stop in. So I'll give you an overall view. Along the bottom, there. Some of the details you can see. That striped fish has a shisha mirror for an eye. I don't know if you can see that. And I quilted in a starfish on that rock. This is the coral reef area with another striped fish. And this was iron-on applique, and then it was surrounded with satin stitching. That's the way it was constructed. And in the video I described that it was free-form piecing of the water fabrics. You'll see lots of Cape facet fabrics. They were a lot of fun to work with. Lots of batiks, lots of ranges of color. Of course, there's the detail quilting. I did a jellyfish. So Cape facet fabrics, and this fish's fins were a huge leaf in Cape facet fabrics. And so the fun thing about applique is finding that perfect little piece of fabric that will, you know, contribute to what you're trying to show. And there you can see nice show up of those plastic beads that I put on, or plastic balls, I guess, to look like bubbles coming out of the fish's mouths. It's another one with lots of Cape fabrics in it. So the batiks and the Cape facet fabrics were just really fun to work with. Every fish is different. And that part of that is the designer designed every fish to be different, and then I had fun playing with the different colors and making sure that no two were really too much alike. There's another fish with a shisha mirror eye. I didn't put the shisha mirrors on all of them. I had intended to at first, but some of the fish just looked creepy, so I didn't do that. I made them more like the designer had intended. But I think there are 3 or 4. There's another one with a shisha mirror as the eye. And the background is getting lighter because we're getting up into the warmer water. Now this fish is jumping and breaking the surface of the water, so I I detailed a dragonfly. I figured he had to be jumping up for something. So I put a dragonfly in. And I changed the thread color so it would show up, because when I used my same background thread color, it just disappeared. There's another fish competing for that dragonfly. And the sky. Okay, don't want to make you sick, don't want to move too fast, but okay. So that's the detail on Underwater Rhapsody.